Tonight, beneath a sky brushed with silver starlight and the quiet breath of the Aegean Sea, we drift together into a world long gone, yet still echoing through time. A world of marble columns, salt-lined breezes, sun-scorched stone, and lives shaped by myth and muscle. Why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece begins with a single moment, a newcomer stepping into a land where gods are feared. Routines are harsh, and every path smells of olive groves and old stories. But before we step into that first breath of ancient air, if you're watching from the US, late at night, or from Europe in the early morning, or from Canada, Asia, or anywhere else in the world, drop a comment telling us where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. And if you enjoy sleep stories, immersive journeys, or calming nighttime adventures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and gently tap the notification bell so you never miss another one. Settle in now, just your pillow, soften your breathing, let the light fade around you. When you're ready, we'll walk together across a coastline older than history. The first thing you feel is the warmth, soft, dry, and ancient. The kind of warmth that seems to rise not only from the sky, but from the earth itself, as though the ground has been storing sunlight for centuries. Your feet touch dusty stone, smooth in some places and cracked in others, worn by thousands of sandals before yours. A faint breeze brushes across your skin, carrying the quiet scent of olive leaves and distant sea spray. You stand at the edge of a bustling Greek agora, the marketplace and heart of the city. Yet despite the movement, the sound is strangely calming, low voices drifting like currents. The clink of pottery, the slow footsteps over stone. Nothing modern breaks the atmosphere. No engines, no metal, no electricity, only the steady rhythm of an ancient world breathing around you. A shepherd passes, leading a slow line of woolly sheep whose bells chime softly. A group of women sits near a fountain carved with stories of gods, filling clay jars and murmuring in gentle tones. And above all this, rising like a guardian watching the city, is a grand marble temple, its pillars sunlit, its shadow stretching lazily toward you. But as peaceful as the scene appears, you already feel the difference in the air. Life here is slower but harder, beautiful but demanding. Even the ground beneath your feet in Evan stone, warmed by ages, reminds you that every step in this world requires attention. A boy runs past, laughing, chasing a stray goat. Someone calls out in a melodic dialect you don't understand but can somehow feel soft vowels, drifting like waves. And for a moment, you stand very still, letting the entire atmosphere soak into you. The warmth, the sense, the gentle hum of a civilization built on philosophy, labor, myth, and dust. Already, you sense it. Surviving here would take more than curiosity. It would take stamina, skill, and a kind of quiet toughness woven into daily life. But for now, you simply breathe and take another slow step deeper into ancient Greece. The sun climbs gently over the tiled rooftops, painting everything in a warm, buttery gold. Light settles across the agora like a soft blanket, revealing details you didn't notice in the dimness earlier. The stone beneath your feet glows with a pale honey tint, and the faint dust in the air catches the sunlight, drifting lazily like tiny stars suspended in daylight. Merchants have begun arranging their stalls for the morning. They move without hurry, each gesture deliberate, each motion shaped by long habit. You watch an elderly man unwrap folded linen cloths, shaking them out with a slow grace that lets the fabric ripple like water. Another man arranges simple ceramic bowls in a careful line, each one slightly imperfect, the fingerprints of its maker still brushed into the clay. A woman selling figs sits tucked beneath the shade of an awning woven from reeds, Her hands move steadily, sorting ripe fruit from the rest. She hums a melody under her breath, something soothing and cyclical, almost like a lullaby passed down for generations. The scent of the fig sweet sun-warmed and earthy drifts through the air, mingling with the sharper aroma of crushed herbs from a nearby stall. You hear the soft, rhythmic tapping of a sandal maker preparing leather. The sound blends with gentle conversation, greetings exchanged, questions asked, wishes for good health murmured with sincerity. Even when people raise their voices slightly to call out wares, there is a soft, rounded quality to their tone or rush, no urgency, only the steady rhythm of a community beginning its day. As you wander deeper between the stalls, you feel the subtle challenge of moving through a world where nothing is convenient. Every object, every tool, every piece of food has been shaped by hand and effort. There are no shortcuts here. Bread must be kneaded, water must be carried, clothing must be woven strand by strand. It's beautiful, but you can sense the weight of it, a lifestyle where daily survival is slow, yet demanding. Still, there is peace here, the kind that comes from people who know their routines intimately, who wake with the sun and shape their existence around its cycle. And as you walk, you can't help but admire that quiet resilience. A soft breeze rolls in from the sea, cooling your cheeks. Somewhere nearby, a lyre's gentle notes drift into the air, light and calming, as if ancient Greece itself is playing you into its pace, one slow, grounding step at a time. You leave the cluster of homes behind, stepping onto a path that winds gently toward the outskirts of the city. The sounds of the agora fade until they become little more than a soft hum carried on the breeze. Here, the air changes lighter, greener, carrying the subtle scent of leaves warmed by the sun. You notice how the light shifts too, filtered through branches that sway lazily overhead. The path beneath your feet is a mixture of packed earth and scattered stones. Each step feels grounded, solid, inviting you to slow your pace even further. A few birds hop along the edges of the trail, pecking quietly at the ground before fluttering up to perch in the olive trees. Their feathers catch the sunlight in muted flashes, and their soft chirps blend gently with the rustle of the leaves. As you walk, the groves open around you like a quiet sanctuary. Olive trees grow in wide, patient rows, their trunks twisted in the elegant, worn patterns of great age. They look like living sculptures' roots, gripping the earth, branches curving like open arms. The leaves shimmer with a silvery whisper each time the wind slips through them, creating a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm that settles deep into your chest. You pause beside one of the oldest trees. Its bark is rough beneath your fingertips, warm from hours beneath the sun. There's a sense of time here, a feeling that this tree has watched countless generations come and go. Farmers, children, travelers now. You, in this moment, you are part of that long, unfolding story. A small group of workers stands farther down the grove. Their movements are unhurried as they tend to the trees, checking branches, adjusting nets laid out beneath them, speaking in low, gentle tones. The faint clatter of tools against baskets punctuates the quiet, but even that sound feels soft, respectful of the peaceful springs. One of the workers lifts a hand in greeting, a simple gesture that carries a warmth beyond language. You notice their clothes, lightweight, loosely woven, carrying the scent of sun, earth, and olive oil. Their forearms are strong, tanned from long days spent nurturing these groves. Yet their faces reflect a serenity you rarely see in the modern world, a calm assurance that comes from working with the land rather than against it. You take another breath, slower this time, feeling it settle through your entire body. The grove seems to invite it, encouraging you to match its quiet rhythm. Even the distant murmur of the sea feels softened here, blending into the natural lull of the leaves. You realize that while ancient Greece can be harsh and demanding, it also holds moments of profound stillness, moments like this, where the world seems to exhale around you. And for now, you let yourself exhale with it. The sun climbs higher, settling into the quiet strength of midday. Its warmth deepens, spreading across the land until every surface seems to carry a soft, glowing heat. The air itself feels slower, now thicker, gently pressing against your skin like a warm blanket. Even the shadows beneath the olive trees seem to shift with lazy reluctance, stretching into long, dappled shapes that sway on the ground. You continue along a narrow trail that weaves between low shrubs and scattered stones. The earth has taken on a richer color here, an ochre tone touched by sunlight, and each step kicks up a faint puff of dust that glitters in the warm air before settling back to the ground. From somewhere ahead, you hear the soft clinking of metal, rhythmic and delicate, like distant wind chimes. As you turn a bend in the path, you find the source. A shepherd walks slowly, guiding a small flock of goats along the hillside. The animals move with a gentle patience, their hooves tapping lightly against the rock and soil. Tiny bells tied to their collars ring with each step, soft, melodic, blending with the steady hum of cicadas hidden among the shrubs. The shepherd himself is calm and unhurried. His cloak drapes lightly across his shoulders, stirring each time the breeze brushes past. His staff taps occasionally against the ground, guiding straying goats back into the group with quiet precision. His face carries the ease of someone who has spent a lifetime walking these same hills, listening to the same winds, watching the same sun trace its arc across the sky. He notices you and offers a small nod, simple, respectful, welcoming. There's no need for words. Here, the landscape speaks louder than voices. The rustle of leaves, the bleating of young goats, the faraway sigh of the sea drifting across the hills. You fall into step beside him for a short while, sharing the trail in comfortable silence. The goats graze on tufts of hardy grass, tugging gently at the stems. The shepherd kneels for a moment, checking a goat's hoof with deliberate care, his movements patient and practiced. You watch the way he tends to each animal, not hurried, not strained, just steady and present. There is a peaceful dignity in the way he works, a reminder that life here depends on calm consistency rather than speed. A breeze rises, carrying with it the scent of sun-warmed herbs, thyme, sage, perhaps a touch of wild rosemary growing low along the path. The gentle fragrance drifts around you, blending with the earthy smell of the hillside. Above, a hawk glides in effortless circles, its shadow briefly passing over you like a cool brushstroke across your skin. For a moment, time seems to stretch, soft and wide. The world quiets, even the flock settles into a slow, synchronized rhythm as they move along the path, and you begin to understand something subtle about ancient Greece, that survival isn't only about strength or endurance, it's also about learning to move with the land, not against it, to let its pace shape your own. Eventually, the shepherd lifts a hand in farewell, guiding his flock toward a distant ridge where the light shimmers like a golden veil. You watch them go, the chiming bells growing softer until they fade completely into the warm, humming afternoon. You stand alone again on the trail, the air still shimmering around you, the hillside breathing quietly beneath the sun. As the shepherd and his flock disappear over the ridge, the path before you grows softer and narrower, bordered by clusters of wildflowers that sway gently in the warm breeze. Their colors, muted lavender, pale yellow, and soft white, seem to glow beneath the sun, each petal catching the light like a tiny lantern. The air here feels different, calmer still, as though the land itself is urging you to move quietly. After a few minutes of slow walking, you notice a small structure tucked against the hillside. It isn't grand or imposing like the temples in the city. Instead, it feels humble, almost shite stone walls worn smooth by centuries of wind and touch. A simple wooden roof, faded by sun and rain, rests on beams that creak softly whenever the breeze shifts. This is a rural shrine, one of many scattered across the countryside. A place where travelers pause, where shepherds leave small offerings, where the boundary between the natural world and the divine feels thin, gentle, and inviting. As you approach, the air cools just slightly, offering you a welcome breath of relief from the midday heat. The doorway is open, with no door to separate outside from inside, only a thin curtain of woven reeds that rustles with each passing gust. You lift it carefully and step through. The interior is dim but soothing. Sunlight enters through a small opening in the roof, falling in a soft beam that illuminates the center of the shrine. Tiny dust particles drift lazily through the shaft of light, swirling like miniature stars. The stone floor beneath your feet is cool and smooth, grounding you instantly. Against the back wall sits a small, carved figure, simple worn, its features softened by time. It might represent a local deity or spirit of the land, something older and quieter than the mighty gods of Olympus. Before it rests modest offerings, a handful of olives, a coil of woven grass, a sprig of herbs placed with care. Nothing extravagant, yet everything meaningful. You kneel for a moment, not out of obligation, but because the space seems to invite it. The air smells faintly of dried sage and cool stone. The silence here feels protective, as if it's been preserved by generations who understood the value of stillness. Outside, the hillside continues its gentle hum, cicadas, singing softly, the wind brushing through grasses, distant goats bleating like echoes from another world. But inside the shrine, everything feels suspended, quiet, peaceful. You run your fingers lightly across the worked stone of the wall. It's covered in small scratches and faint carvings, tokens left behind by visitors long before you. Some marks form shapes, others appear to be names or symbols. Each one represents someone who stood where you stand now, seeking rest, guidance, or simply a moment of calm on a long journey. You breathe deeply, letting the quiet seep into you. In a world without modern noise, without screens or engines or interruptions, this small sanctuary feels surprisingly powerful, a reminder that even in a time of hardship and demand, people carved out spaces for gentleness, places to pause, breathe, and simply exist. When you finally rise, the air outside feels softer, as though the shrine has pressed a calm hand on your shoulder before letting you go. The landscape seems a touch brighter, the breeze a bit kinder. Even the sun feels less heavy on your skin. You step back onto the narrow path, ready to continue following the hills toward whatever comes next. Leaving the quiet sanctuary of the hillside shrine behind you, the landscape opens gently, as though unfolding page by page. The hills slowly soften into rolling slopes, and beyond them you begin to glimpse a shimmer of deep blue, the sea, distant yet unmistakable, glimmering beneath the sun like a sheet of polished glass. Its presence feels both calming and magnetic, a promise of cool air and drifting waves. The path bends in a long, winding curve, leading you downward at a steady, unhurried pace. Each step feels different now, lighter, perhaps as though the calm of the shrine still rests quietly on your shoulders. The breeze grows stronger the closer you walk toward the distant water, carrying hints of salt, seaweed, and something crisp and refreshing that cuts gently through the warmth of the day. Small clusters of shrubs dot the landscape, rustling softly when the wind slips past. Their leaves flicker with silver undertones, catching bits of sunlight and scattering them across the ground in trembling patterns. Occasionally, a lizard scurries across the stones, disappearing into the tall grass with barely a whisper. Even these small movements feel peaceful, part of the slow tapestry of the ancient world. You reach a stretch of the path bordered by low stone walls, simple structures built by hand, each rock fitted carefully without mortar, resting in place through the patience and skill of someone long before you. Moss grows in their crevices, soft and pale, and tiny flowers sprout bravely in the spaces where soil has gathered. As you trail your hand along the stones, you feel the warmth they've absorbed from the sun, radiating gently like stored memories. A group of travelers appears ahead, moving at an easy pace along the same route. They carry bundles slung over their shoulders, woven baskets, rolled blankets, small jars tied securely with rope. Their conversation is low and steady, the kind exchanged on long walks when there is no rush, only companionship and the rhythm of steady footsteps. When they notice you, they offer warm, welcoming nods. One of them, a young man with sun-browned skin and a kind expression, glances at your empty hands and gestures toward the road ahead, as if to say you're welcome to walk with them. And so you do, falling into step nearby, letting their gentle chatter become another layer of the peaceful afternoon. As the sea draws nearer, the sound reaches you first faint at the edges, like a soft exhale repeating itself. A long, soothing hush that rises and falls in unending cycles. It blends with the warm breeze and the quiet footfalls of the travelers around you, creating a rhythm that steadies your breathing almost unconsciously. The path eventually levels out, meeting a stretch of open land covered in tall, feathery grass that sways in slow waves. The scent of salt grows stronger now. The sky feels wider, and ahead of you, the sea spreads outward, endless and serene. You pause for a moment, allowing the view to settle deeply into your senses. The quiet power of it, the softness, the ancient familiarity of land meeting water under the same sun that has watched over countless generations. The travelers continue forward, but they glance back and wait for you, giving you time to take it all in. There is no rush here, no ticking clock, only the slow unfolding of a world built on patience and presence. You take a long, slow breath of sea air and step forward again. The sound of the sea grows clearer with every slow step you take, no longer a distant hush, but a steady rhythm that guides the air itself. By the time you reach the final curve of the path, the breeze has softened into something cool and refreshing, brushing gently along your arms and carrying with it the unmistakable scent of salt and drifting foam. Then, at last, the Aegean reveals itself. The shoreline stretches in a quiet arc, pale sand warmed by the sun and dotted with smooth stones shaped by centuries of waves. The water shimmers in gentle tones of blue deep near the horizon, then softening toward turquoise as it approaches the shore. Each ripple glows as sunlight dances across its surface, creating tiny flashes that look like stars sparkling beneath the midday light. You step closer, your feet sinking slightly into the soft sand. The warmth of it seeps through your soles, grounding you in a way that feels ancient and soothing. The waves roll in softly, folding over themselves in delicate white foam before gliding back again. Their sound is steady and calming, like a deep breath taken by the earth and released in slow exhalation. The travelers who walked with you settle beneath a cluster of low trees whose branches lean protectively toward the water. They untie their bundles with practiced ease, setting out simple foods, bread, cheese, olives, and figs. They motion for you to join them with a quiet smile, and you accept, easing down into the shade where the earth is cool and the ocean murmurs just beyond reach. As you sit, the breeze brushes through the leaves overhead, creating a soft rustling that blends beautifully with the rhythm of the waves. The scent of the sea is gentle here, mingling with the aroma of sun-warmed wood and the faint sweetness of figs being shared among the group. They eat slowly, savoring each bite, speaking only when words naturally rise into the air. A woman offers you a piece of bread, its crust firm but warm from the heat of the day. The simple but comforting taste reminds you once again how grounded life is, here how tied to the land, the sea, the sun, nothing rushed, nothing wasted. After eating, one of the travelers lies back with hands behind his head, eyes half closed as he listens to the waves. Another woman begins to hum softly, a melodic tune that flows in gentle arcs, mirroring the movement of the ocean. The melody doesn't demand attention. Instead, it drifts like a breeze, soothing without effort, inviting you into stillness. You stretch out your legs, letting your body relax fully into the shade. The sand shifts slightly beneath you, cushioning your weight. A faint spray of water kisses the air every so often when a wave rolls a bit farther than the last. Everything here feels slow, steady, peaceful. As you gaze across the sea, you notice fishing boats far in the distance, tiny silhouettes rocking gently with the tide. Their sails, small but determined, rise and fall with the motion of the water as they glide across the horizon in the same paths sailors have taken for thousands of years. Your eyes grow heavier, lulled by the warm air and the soft chorus of natural sounds. The sea, the breeze, the rustling leaves, the quiet companionship around you all blend into a rhythm that makes the world feel safe and timeless. Here, in this moment, ancient Greece doesn't feel harsh or demanding. It feels like a lullaby carved from sunlight and water, inviting you to rest, even if only for a few breaths. As the quiet lull of the shoreline settles more deeply around you, a subtle shift in the air draws your attention toward the water. Far across the shimmering blue surface, one of the small fishing boats begins to drift closer, its silhouette growing larger with each gentle rise and fall of the waves. The boat's sail billows softly, catching the breeze in smooth, unhurried breaths, guiding it toward the curve of the shore where you rest. The travelers nearby straighten slightly, watching with calm familiarity. This is a daily rhythm for them, a fisherman returning with the gifts of the sea. No rush, no urgency, only another thread woven into the fabric of an ancient day. The boat glides closer until the hull finally brushes against the shallow sand with a muted, wooden creak. A fisherman steps out, the water rising around his ankles in cool swirls. His tunic clings lightly to his sun-warmed skin, damp from the spray of the sea. His movements are steady and practiced, shaped by years spent learning the tides and reading the wind. He gives the group a warm, quiet smile, his eyes soft with the gentle fatigue of a long morning's work. The sun has bronzed his face, and faint lines near his eyes mark a life spent squinting into bright horizons. You notice how his breaths are deep, steady, matching the rhythm of the waves behind him, as if his body has long since learned to mimic the sea's unending calm. He lifts a woven basket from the boat, its fibers darkened by seawater, and carries it to the shaded patch where everyone sits. Inside, nestled against layers of damp seaweed, are glistening fish caught fresh that morning. Their scales shimmer faintly in the dappled sunlight, reflecting soft blues and silvers. The group murmurs quiet greetings as he settles beside them. There is no negotiation, no tension, only the gentle certainty of shared routine. One of the women offers him water from a clay jug, and he drinks with slow appreciation, closing his eyes for a moment as the cool liquid eases the dryness of the midday heat. When he opens the basket again, he carefully sorts the fish, selecting a few to share. He gestures toward you with a small nod, an invitation, simple but sincere. You accept a piece, feeling the surprising weight of it in your hands. Even this small exchange reminds you of how deeply connected life here is to the land and sea, how every meal carries the imprint of human effort and the gifts of nature. The fisherman begins preparing a portion of his catch for drying, laying it on a smooth stone warmed by the sun. His hands move steadily, unhurried, with the calm precision of someone who understands that time is not an enemy, here only a companion. The others relax around him, watching or resting, letting the moment unfold naturally. A soft breeze sweeps across the shore, fluttering the edges of the fishermen's nets that hang to dry from a nearby branch. They sway gently like woven curtains, casting delicate patterns of shadow across the sand. Somewhere nearby, a gull calls out, its voice clear and distant, blending seamlessly with the scent of salt and the steady pulse of the waves. You lean back slightly, allowing the peaceful scene to settle deeper into your senses. The lapping water, the murmured voices, the sun-warmed sand beneath your palms. Everything feels slow, balanced, unforced. It strikes you how different this life is from your own. Not easy, no, but grounded, connected, woven from shared labor and shared rest. And in that simplicity lies a quiet kind of strength. The fisherman glances toward the horizon again, watching the light flicker across the sea. For a moment, everyone falls into a companionable silence, listening to the world breathe around them. You close your eyes briefly, letting the rhythm of ancient Greece wash over you like a lullaby. As the fisherman settles into the shade and the gentle murmurs of conversation soften, the day shifts into a quieter rhythm. Midday deepens, bringing with it a warm stillness that feels almost sacred. The sun, now high above the coastline, casts a shimmering glow over the water, a soft glaze of light that makes the waves look like rolling sheets of silver blue silk. The air grows warmer, but not uncomfortably so. Instead, it becomes thick with a dreamy calm, as though inviting every creature, every plant, every traveler to slow their breath and rest. Even the sea seems to ease its movements, the waves rolling in with a softer sigh, as if feeling the weight of the sun and responding with gentle emotion. Around you, the group of travelers settles into a peaceful midday pause. Some lie back against the soft sand, using their rolled blankets as makeshift pillows. Others sit cross-legged, gazing steadily out at the horizon or tracing patterns in the sand with absent-minded fingertips. The fisherman hums quietly under his breath, a tune that rises and falls like a tide, smooth and soothing, barely louder than the whispering waves. You shift slightly, finding a comfortable position beneath the shade of the low, leaning tree. Its leaves flutter now and then, creating patches of dancing light that move softly across your skin. The breeze has grown slower too, its coolness brushing your face in gentle intervals, just enough to balance the warmth around you. Not far away, the nets continue to sway, their rhythmic movement mesmerizing. Each soft sway casts shifting shadows over the sandlong, delicate lines that form and dissolve like passing thoughts. A few birds perch atop a cluster of sun-bleached rocks, their feathers ruffled from the warmth. They stand quietly, resting, waiting for the cooler hours to stir again. One of the travelers begins to speak, a low, soothing voice sharing a simple story about the sea gods and the fisherman who trusts them. The tale is not dramatic or urgent. It unfolds slowly, like a calm river, its words blending with the muted lap of the waves. Even without understanding every detail, you feel the comfort of the moment, the way stories have long served to ease the mind and soften the edges of the day. You let your eyes drift closed, just for a breath, feeling the warm earth beneath you and the soft sounds around you. The temperature, The breeze, the hum of voices, they wrap around you like a lullaby woven from sunlight and salt air. In this lull, you realize something subtle but profound. Life in ancient Greece requires stamina, yes, and effort, but it also honors rest. Midday is not a time for rushing or pushing against the warmth. It is a time for aligning with the world, allowing the land and sea to set the pace. You inhale deeply, slow and steady, the smell of sun-warmed wood, distant herbs, and cool seawater filling your senses. With your exhale, the tension in your shoulders softens, and the world seems to settle comfortably around you. Here, in the quiet pause of the day, you understand why rest is as essential to survival as labor, and how ancient people, without clocks or screens or constant noise, learned to listen to the natural rhythm of the world, one gentle breath at a time. As the day slowly tilts past its warmest hour, the group of travelers begins to stir. The fisherman gathers his nets, the soft rustle of woven fibers rising gently in the still air. A few quiet goodbyes are exchanged, nods, small hand gestures, warm smiles that carry no urgency. The moment feels like the closing of a soft chapter, and as the breeze shifts again, you rise with the others, brushing warm grains of sand from your hands. The path leading away from the shore stretches inland, winding gently between tall grasses that sway in slow waves. The air carries a delicate mixture of scents now, the lingering salt of the sea behind you, and the earthy perfume of sun-baked soil ahead. As you walk, the rhythmic hush of the waves fades into the distance, replaced by a new sound, faint but growing clearer with each step. It is the soft chatter of voices. Somewhere farther inland, another gathering awaits. The travelers mention it with quiet satisfaction. A small weekly market where nearby villagers come to trade simple goods, fresh herbs, woven baskets, pottery, and small tokens crafted by hand. It is not like the bustling agora you saw earlier in the day. This market is more intimate, shaped by countryside life and the steady routines of farmers and artisans. You follow the path as it rises slightly, leading you over a low ridge. When you reach the crest, the view opens before you in gentle shades of ochre, green, and sunlit gold. The market sits in a clearing surrounded by olive trees and patches of wild thyme that release a soft fragrance each time the wind brushes past them. Small stalls stand beneath makeshift awnings woven from reeds and cloth. Each one is humble, yet the care put into them is unmistakable. A potter arranges clay cups on a wooden plank, their rounded shapes still slightly uneven from being shaped by hand. A young boy sits beside a basket of figs, sorting them with a seriousness far beyond his years. Nearby, an older woman threads strands of dyed wool into a loom, her fingers moving with a slow, practiced rhythm. The sound of gentle conversation rises and falls, like the motion of the sea people greeting each other, sharing news, laughing softly at familiar stories. There is no shouting here, no hurried bargaining, only the calm exchange of goods and gratitude. As you walk among the stalls, the earthy smell of fresh bread catches your attention. A baker stands behind a small table, placing warm loaves onto a cloth. Their crusts are browned perfectly by a clay oven, and thin curls of steam rise from them like quiet invitations. He offers you a small piece, tearing it gently before placing it into your hands. The bread is soft, subtly sweet, infused with the distinct aroma of olive oil. You savor it slowly, letting the flavors settle warmly across your tongue. A young girl approaches next, carrying a bundle of herbs tied neatly with twine. She holds it out to you with a shy smile. Thyme, sage, and a single stem of rosemary. A simple gift, a traveler's welcome. You accept it with gratitude, feeling the texture of the leaves beneath your fingertips and breathing in the fresh, calming scent. Around you, life moves at a pace that feels almost dreamlike. People stroll, pause, rest, exchange stories. Sunlight filters through the branches overhead, dappling the ground with shifting patterns. A dog wanders lazily between stalls, hoping for a dropped crumb or a gentle scratch behind the ears. You realize that markets like this have existed, in one form or another, for countless generations, quiet meeting places where community and routine intertwine. Places where hardship is acknowledged but softened by companionship, where effort is balanced with moments of rest. You take another slow breath, letting the peaceful energy of the clearing settle within you. The inland market, with all its modest beauty, feels like another reminder of why life here, though difficult at times, holds its own deep, timeless comfort. The last glow of the afternoon drifts across the sky as you make your way toward the Agora once more. This time, not for chores or obligations, but simply to observe how the heart of the city slows itself for the evening. The air feels different now, cooler, softer, carrying the faintest traces of crushed herbs, bakery smoke, and the distant briny breath of the sea. Every sound seems gentler, stretched into long, unhurried threads that weave through the fading light. Stone columns rise like warm silhouettes around you, their surfaces glowing with the sunset's gentle fire. Merchants cover their stalls with layers of linen. The fabric flutters lazily as the breeze passes through, whispering its way across rooftops and open courtyards. A potter rinses clay from his hands in a shallow basin, the water rippling with a rhythmic swish, swish, before calming into a perfect mirror. A stray dog curls beside a cooling amphora, tail resting on its paws, watching you with untroubled eyes. As more shadows gather, the Agora begins to shift into a softer version of itself. Conversations drift, not with urgency, but with the relaxed tone of neighbors recounting the day. A group of elders settles onto a worn stone bench, their cloaks pulled lightly around their shoulders. Their voices rise and fall in the gentle cadence of shared memory, as though the stories themselves are floating lanterns bobbing on a quiet river. And above all of it, the city breathes a slow, ancient breath that has passed through countless generations. You feel the weight of centuries beneath your feet, the smoothness of the stones, shaped by footsteps long vanished, and yet everything feels strangely present, alive, as if the world is leaning in to tell you something only the twilight remembers. A breeze moves through your hair like a calm hand, and for a moment you simply stand there, letting ancient Greece cradle you in its evening hush. The warmth of the day leaves your muscles, replaced by a peaceful heaviness that encourages stillness. The quiet, the amber light, the rhythmic murmur of the people, it all settles around you like a blanket woven from time itself. As you leave the Agora behind, the city's soft chatter fades into a gentle hum, replaced by the distant rustle of olives stirring in the wind. The path before you slopes toward the outer edge of the polis, where clusters of ancient trees stand in quiet formation, their silver-green leaves shimmering like tiny mirrors catching the last golden threads of daylight. Each step carries you deeper into a calm that feels older than memory itself. The air here cools noticeably, brushing across your arms with a feather-like softness. You inhale deeply and sense a comforting blend of earth and fruits and warmed soil, crushed olives, and the faint hint of wild sage rising from the ground. The world begins to glow in dusky hues, shadows stretching long and thin, weaving between the gnarled trunks that twist like graceful sculptures shaped by centuries. A shepherd passes nearby, guiding a small flock toward a wooden enclosure. The sheep move slowly, their hooves tapping faintly against the hard-packed earth. Tap, pause, tap, pause, tap, pause, a rhythm so steady it seems meant to ease the mind. The The shepherd nods to you in quiet acknowledgement before continuing, his silhouette fading into the deepening violet of the horizon. Cicadas begin their evening chorus, but instead of the sharp midday buzz, their nighttime song is lower, smoother, almost like a humming lullaby rising and falling with patient consistency. You follow the sound, letting it wrap around your thoughts like a soft shawl. Overhead, the sky shifts into a deep indigo, the first stars waking with tiny, hopeful glimmers. As the light dims further, the olive grove seems to lean inward, forming a natural canopy that filters the last orange streaks of the setting sun. The tree trunks cast gentle shadows at your feet, and you feel a sense of shelter, ancient, quiet, reassuring. A solitary owl calls in the distance, its voice soft and calm, marking the hour when the world transitions from movement to rest. You pause beside one of the broader trunks, tracing your fingers along the weathered bark. It feels cool now, cooled by the evening breeze. But beneath the surface you imagine a slow, steady life, still humming, just as it has for countless years. You exhale, letting your breath fall into the same unhurried rhythm. Night is settling over ancient Greece, not with urgency, but with the deep, steady patience of a world that has done this dance of dusk and dark for millennia. As you continue along the quiet path, the olive grove slowly thins, revealing clusters of small clay-walled homes nestled at the foot of gentle hills. The village feels tucked into the landscape, as if the earth itself scooped out a shallow cradle for it to rest in. Evening has settled here more fully, bringing with it a soft hush that drapes over the rooftops like a woven blanket. One by one, warm golden lights begin to glow from inside the homesteady oil lamps flickering behind thin linen curtains. Their light spills through narrow doorways and window slits, casting long, peaceful shapes across the ground. Each lamp seems to sway slightly, as if breathing along with the people inside, offering a comforting beacon against the rising darkness. The air carries the scent of freshly baked bread cooling on wooden boards, mingling with warm hints of lentils, simmering in simple clay pots. You can almost feel the gentle heat radiating from the hearths, even from a distance, spreading outward into the cool night and softening the edges of the village with a velvety warmth. A woman steps outside her doorway to shake a woven mat, the motion slow and unhurried. Her movements suggest a life lived in rhythm with the land, steady, measured, content. She glances toward you with a calm, welcoming expression before returning indoors, where soft chatter drifts from within like the low bubbling of a quiet stream. Farther ahead, a pair of children finish gathering firewood, their small arms bundled with smooth sticks. Their laughter is low and gentle, toned down by the hour, but still carrying a spark of playfulness. They place the firewood neatly by the entrance of their home before slipping inside, leaving behind a faint trail of dusty footprints. A faint breeze rustles through the village, swirling lightly around you. The sound of it passing through the clay homes and wooden shutters creates a soothing, hollow whisper whoosh. Hush! Whooshes if the night wind is carefully brushing away the final traces of the day's busyness. In the distance, a narrow plume of smoke rises from a communal hearth, its scent mellow and woody. Villagers linger round it, wrapped in simple cloaks, speaking softly about the day's harvest, the weather, and tomorrow's hopes. Everything about the scene feels safe, gentle, unforced, place where evening invites people toward rest rather than work. You continue walking through the village, feeling the warmth of the lamps and hearths gather around you like a soft embrace, guiding you further into the quiet heart of ancient Greece. Night deepens slowly over the village, and the earlier glow of hearth fires softens into gentle points of warmth against the dark. The air has cooled considerably, carrying a crispness that feels clean and calming. like the earth itself has exhaled after the day's heat. Overhead, the sky stretches wide and untroubled, a vast dome of velvet black flecked with countless stars that gleam quietly in the ancient night. You step outside one of the clay homes, drawn by the hush that blankets the village. The ground beneath your sandals is cool and firm, dust softened by the twilight's calm. A gentle wind rustles through the olive branches overhead, whispering faint patterns of movement that echo softly across silent walls. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls again low and measured, its voice carrying softly across the dark. You walk slowly toward the edge of the village, leaving behind the lantern-lit homes and hearth-warmed stones. In the direction of the sea, you sense a distant globe, moonlight reflecting off water, shimmering faintly like a silver thread woven between horizon and earth. The path slopes gently downward, and with each step the world seems to breathe more deeply, inviting stillness, inviting contemplation. As you reach a small rise overlooking the coastline, you pause. Below, the sea lies calm under the night sky, its surface black but for soft ripples that catch the faint moonlight. The sound of waves is nearly silent, a subtle pulse at the edge of hearing, a gentle, rhythmic hush that seems older than time. The breeze carries salt and distant seaweed, softened and cooled for night, mingling with the warm, embracing scent of olive trees. You sit against a low stone wall, gloved by cool shadow, and lift your gaze to the stars. The constellations above seem sharper than any you've known, brighter, deeper, as though every spark were etched with stories of gods, heroes, and ancient journeys. A single shooting star arcs slowly across the heavens, leaving a trailing glow that fades too quickly, but lingers in your memory like a quiet promise. Beside you, the world remains peaceful. In the village behind you, lanterns burn steadily, but their glow does not intrude here. The sea whispers, the trees murmur, the land exhales, and in that exhale, you sense the full pulse of a time when humanity lived closer to sky, earth, and water. Your chest rises and falls slowly with calm breath. The soft pulse of night around you settles like a lullaby, each rustle, each wave, each distant call blending into a slow, steady heartbeat, a heartbeat that belongs not just to one life, but to generations of lives that walked these shores before you. You rest your head gently against the stone wall, letting the cool surface press softly against your back. Your fingers curled lightly around a smooth pebble you found on the path, small, unremarkable, but carried now as a quiet token of the night, of this fleeting moment suspended between sea and sky. For a while, you don't move, you simply listen. The world is wide, the air is soft, and all around you feel the gentle pulse of ancient Greece breathing in the hush of night. As the stars settle deeper into the sky, you rise from the stone wall and make your way back toward the village. The night feels fuller now, wrapped in a gentle quiet that seems to hum beneath every breath of wind. The path is easy to follow, lit faintly by moonlight. The pale dust glimmers just enough to guide you with soft, comforting certainty. As you approach the first cluster of homes, you notice a slow, deliberate figure moving through the shadows. It is one of the night watchmen, an older man draped in a woolen cloak that brushes the ground with each step. A small lantern swings from his hand, its flame breathing gently in the still air, casting amber circles that drift across the walls and ground like warm floating halos. He walks with a steady gait, not hurried, not tense, simply present. His sandals whisper softly over the earth, each step blending into the quiet rhythm of the night. When he passes by, he offers you a small nod, his expression relaxed, his eyes carrying the calm of someone who has walked these paths for a lifetime. His presence is not one of alarm, but of reassurance, as though he is less guarding the village and more guiding it safely through the hours of darkness. The faint glow of his lantern lingers behind him long after he continues on, and for a moment you watch the small orb of light drift between homes like a wandering firefly. From nearby doorways you hear the soft murmurs of families preparing for rest. A mother gently hums a lullaby, a simple, repetitive melody that floats into the night like a warm ribbon of sound. Somewhere else, an old man clears his throat before settling onto a straw mattress. Pots clink quietly as someone finishes tidying their home for the evening. The village, once bustling with daytime activity, now moves with a completely different rhythm, slow, tender, patient. You pass a low stone well at the center of a small courtyard. Moonlight reflects faintly on its surface, turning the water into a shimmering pool of silver. You lean over it, watching the ripples dance as the slight night breeze touches the surface. The smell of cool stone and fresh water mixes with the distant hint of baking bread still lingering in the air. A pair of cats slink past your feet, their tails lifting as they brush lightly against your ankle. They move with the confidence of creatures who know every corner of this place, slipping between shadows with effortless grace. Their eyes glow faintly in the moonlight before they disappear behind a clay wall, leaving only the sound of their nimble steps tapping softly on the stones. You continue walking, letting the world remain unhurried. Every sound is gentle, every movement slow. Every breath feels like a quiet invitation to sink deeper into the sanctuary of night. The lanterns inside the homes dim one by one, like stars gently folding into sleep. But the village remains warm, not with heat, but with presence, history, and the timeless comfort of people winding down together at the end of another day. Here, under the ancient moon, and guarded by the steady footsteps of the night watch, you feel the soothing embrace of a world designed not for speed, but for stillness. You leave the quiet heart of the village behind, moving toward a gentle hill that rises like a soft silhouette against the star-filled sky. At the top stands a small temple, simple, elegant, its marble columns glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. The path leading to it is narrow and winding, but the stones beneath your feet are smooth, worn by generations of unhurried footsteps. As you begin your ascent, the night wraps more thickly around you, bringing with it a cool clarity that sharpens the hush of the world. The grove below rustles with 100 tiny leaves, moving just enough to remind you of their presence. The faint echo of distant waves blends with the rhythmic chirping of crickets, the sounds weaving together into a soft tapestry of nighttime serenity. The first step of the temple is cool when you touch it, the marble holding on to the night's chill. You place your foot gently, and the stone gives off a quiet tch kaya sound that feels almost ceremonial in its simplicity. You continue upward, step by slow step, each one carrying the soft echo of your movement through the peaceful air. When you reach the top, the world opens wide again. The temple stands modest in size but graceful in posture, its columns rising like pale pillars of moonlight. Between them, shadows rest like long, gentle ribbons laid carefully across the ground. A faint scent of burning herbs lingers, sage, thyme, perhaps a trace of laurel, almost as if someone had tended a small ritual fire earlier in the evening, and the fragrance remains, drifting with a calm steadiness. Inside the open portico, an offering bowl sits quietly on a stone pedestal. A few olives rest within it, their surfaces catching the starlight in tiny glints. A sprig of fresh rosemary lies beside them, its needle-like leaves still fragrant, still bright with green life even in the dimness. You approach slowly, letting your steps soften as you cross into the temple's gentle embrace. A breeze moves through the columns, brushing lightly against your skin. It feels like a hand, cool, steady, ancient, resting momentarily on your shoulder, not guiding, not pushing, just acknowledging your presence in a place shaped by centuries of quiet devotion. You pause near the edge of the temple and look outward. From this height, the world spreads in a peaceful panorama, the village glowing with faint, warm lights, the olive groves rolling like soft waves, the distant coastline stitched with moonlit silver. Everything seems hushed, softened, wrapped in the serenity of a night that has witnessed countless lives long before yours. Above, the stars burn with gentle brightness. They seem closer here, almost within reach. One constellation, faint but steady, looks like a cluster of tiny pearls scattered across deep velvet. You follow its shape with your eyes, feeling the same ancient wonder that countless Greeks felt on nights just like this. You breathe in slowly. The temple breathes with you. For a long moment, you simply stand there, letting the calm settle into every corner of your mind. You remain on the temple's threshold only a moment before curiosity draws you deeper inside. The sanctuary is small, far quieter than the open portico, but its stillness feels intentional, like a gentle pause held in the palms of the gods themselves. The walls are made of pale stone, smoothed by hands long forgotten, and they reflect the moonlight in a soft silvery glow that settles over everything like a thin layer of calm. Your footsteps echo faintly as you enter, but even the echoes feel hushed, softened by the room's cool air. The scent of old incense lingers, something warm and resinous, perhaps myrrh or cedar, its sweetness fading, yet still present enough to tug gently at your senses. It mingles with the faint mineral scent of the stone, creating an atmosphere that feels ancient, sacred, and deeply peaceful. Against the back wall stands a simple altar carved from one solid block of marble. It is unadorned except for a shallow groove along the top where offerings once rested. Tonight, only a single clay lamp remains. Its flame is small but steady, flickering with a slow, deliberate dance that casts soft, rhythmic shadows across the walls. Each flicker seems to breathe, as though the lamp itself is alive with the quiet pulse of night. You move closer, drawn by the gentle glow. The warmth from the lamp feels subtle, barely there, but comforting, like the calm heat of a sun-warmed stone cooling in your palm. Someone must have lit it recently. The wick is neat, the oil fresh. There is an unspoken kindness in the gesture light, left burning not for spectacle, but for presence. To one side of the altar, you notice a small painted jar resting on a ledge. The design is faded, but the careful strokes of an ancient artist are still visible. Olive branches curling around the sides, a peaceful scene of harvest painted with delicate competence. The paint has been worn by centuries of dust and time, yet the picture remains, steady and quiet, a whisper from a life lived in a world far slower than ours. A soft breeze drifts through a narrow window slit high above your head. It carries with it the faint rustle of leaves from the grove outside, and the distant murmur of waves brushing the shore. The breeze slips across your skin like a cool ribbon of shadow, then fades again, leaving behind a sense of clarity that settles deeply, peacefully, within you. You take a seat on a stone bench along the walls, smoothed over generations to a softness you wouldn't expect from stone. The cool surface sends a calming shiver up your spine before your body relaxes into it, and a wave of quiet contentment washes over you. In this sanctuary, time slows even more. The outside world feels far away, as if gently tucked behind layers of calm. The night watchman's lantern is only a memory now. The village murmurs distant as a dream, and here within these ancient walls only, silence speaks. Not the heavy silence of emptiness, but the gentle silence of presence, of breath, of rest. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle around you like a soft cloak. The temple holds its peace, steady and patient, as if waiting for nothing but the chance to share it with anyone who lingers long enough to listen. When you rise from the smooth stone bench, the sanctuary's gentle hush follows you like a soft echo. You step back toward the temple's open portico, and the night air greets you again, cool, fresh, carrying the faint scent of distant salt and crushed olive leaves. The moon has climbed higher now, bathing the hilltop in a pale silver light that makes every surface glow with quiet clarity. As you descend the steps of the temple, each one feels steady beneath your feet, as if guiding you rather than simply supporting you. The world below looks softer from this height, the rooftops of the village dimly illuminated by the last embers of hearth fires, the olive groves shimmering faintly like silvered fields, and beyond them, the sea stretching into shadowy stillness. The path downward is narrow but comforting. It winds around the hill in slow, gentle curves, never rushing toward the village but easing you toward it, as if taking care not to disturb the peaceful rhythm of your thoughts. Your sandals make small sounds against the earth-soft thk ... hk that blends seamlessly with the night chorus around you. Fireflies begin to appear as you move away from the temple's brilliance. They blink in and out of sight, tiny lanterns drifting through the air with no urgency at all. One floats close to your hand, its glow pulsing softly like a quiet heartbeat before it drifts away again, disappearing into the tall grass beside the path. Their faint light adds another layer to the night, subtle, warm, alive. The breeze shifts, carrying with it a thread of music. At first you think you're imagining it, but then the sound becomes clearer, a lone flute playing from somewhere deeper in the village. The notes rise slowly, lingering in the cool air, before falling into gentle pauses that feel like breaths between thoughts. The melody is calm and wandering, like someone playing for themselves rather than for an audience, quiet companion for the night. The music guides your steps as the path straightens. Soon, houses reappear, their shapes rounded by the moon's soft glow. Most lanterns have been extinguished by now, leaving only a handful of windows lit by the dim orange flicker of low-burning lamps. You pass a narrow garden where rows of herbs rustle gently, basil, fennel, and what might be mint. The smell is fresh, cool, and pleasantly sharp, as though the plants themselves are exhaling with relief after the heat of the day. A stone basin nearby reflects the moonlight like a polished mirror, its surface disturbed only by the faint ripple of wind passing by. Further ahead, the flute plays on soft, steady, drifting like a lullaby through the winding streets. You walk slowly, letting the song guide you deeper into the heart of the night. Your footsteps fall in rhythm with the music, your breath matching its gentle rise and fall. Nothing about this world is hurried. Nothing asks for your attention. Everything simply exists alongside you, quiet, patient, peaceful. By the time you reach the edge of the village's small square, the flute's melody has softened even more, blending into the night until it becomes indistinguishable from the wind, the crickets, and the quiet breathing of the world. You pause there, letting the tranquility settle into your chest like a warm, steady glow. The village square lies quiet as you enter it, shaped like a soft bowl at the center of the surrounding homes. In the daylight, it would have been filled with voices, merchants calling out prices, children chasing each other across sun-warmed stones, neighbors exchanging news in the shade of the fig tree that stands proudly at its center. But now, under the cool embrace of night, the square feels like a gentle, resting heart. Only one source of light remains, a small communal hearth glowing with the last embers of a shared evening fire. The flames have quieted to soft, warm coals, deep red, with hints of gold pulsing within them. They crackle occasionally, the faintest whisper of sound, like someone turning in sleep beneath a heavy blanket. The scent of smoke is mild and comforting, hanging in the air with a sweetness that reminds you of roasted grain and warm, rustic meals. You approach the hearth slowly, drawn by its quiet glow. A few villagers remain seated around it, elderly men and women wrapped in woolen cloaks, their faces relaxed, softened by the gentle flicker of the embers. They are not talking now, but simply sitting, breathing, watching the fire as though it were an old friend, keeping them company through the night. One elder looks up as you near. His eyes are calm, steady, carrying the same warmth as the coals before him. With a small nod, he gestures for you to sit. You take your place on one of the low stone benches circling the hearth, feeling the residual warmth rise toward you in slow, soothing waves. A clay pot sits just beyond the fire's reach, still warm from earlier. One of the women pours a bit of herbal infusion into a small cup steeped from local mint and gentle mountain flowers and hands it to you with a kind, unhurried smile. The cup warms your palms instantly, and when you breathe in, the aroma is soft and clean, like fresh leaves brushed by morning dew. No one rushes here. No one feels the need to fill the silence. Instead, the quiet becomes a shared companion, weaving gently between each person like an invisible thread of comfort. Above you, the sky stretches wide and unbroken, the constellations sharp and steady. The firelight dances across the villagers' faces, flickering over weather-worn lines, softening their expressions into shapes of peace and memory. After a long while, the elder who first acknowledged you clears his throat softly, a single sound that seems to ripple through the stillness without disturbing it. He begins to speak in a slow, gentle tone, telling a simple story about the grove you passed earlier. His words float like smoke rising from the coals, curling upward, soft and warm. He speaks of harvest seasons, of ancient roots twisting deep into the earth, of families gathering beneath the trees for countless generations. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed, just a weaving of memories stretching across years, told with the ease of someone who has lived his life in tune with the land and the rhythms of time. The story isn't meant to excite you, it's meant to settle you, to lull your breath into the same slow pace as the embers glowing before you. When he finishes, he leans back against the stone wall, closing his eyes. The others do the same, letting the fire's soft glow wash over them. You sit quietly, the warm cup resting in your hands, feeling your heart slow to match the night's ancient rhythm. The embers in the communal hearth begin to soften, their glow dimming into a gentle, sleepy red as the last few villagers rise and make their way home. You stand as well, feeling the cool night wrap around you again like a soft cloak. The air has settled into a deeper stillness, now one that invites wandering, thinking, or simply breathing in the quiet of ancient Greece. A narrow path leads from the square toward the distant sound of the sea, and you follow it, guided by the faint rhythm of waves brushing the shore. The night around you feels open and wide, as if the world itself is exhaling slowly. Each step takes you further from the village lights, deeper into the embrace of moonlit solitude. The homes grow sparser as you walk. Small gardens appear, patches of herbs, low stone walls, tiny fig trees offering dark silhouettes against the silvered sky. A lone donkey, half asleep, lifts its head as you pass, its ears flicking gently before it settles again with a soft sigh. The simple sound blends into the quiet night, comforting in its ordinary calm. The path widens slightly as you near the coastline. Olive trees appear again, but fewer now, their branches swaying softly with the sea breeze. The leaves shimmer under the moonlight like 1,000 tiny scales, catching the light just enough to sparkle before falling back into shadow. The wind carries their rustling to you, hush, hush, a gentle repetition that calms the mind with every pass. The scent of the sea reaches you long before you see it. Salt, cool and sharp. A faint trace of seaweed dried by the day's sun. The distant freshness of open water. Each breath fills your chest with a soothing chill, clearing away whatever weight might remain from the long journey through time. Finally, the path opens, revealing the shoreline. It stretches wide beneath the moon, curved softly along the edge of the land, like a quiet smile etched into the earth. The waves are small tonight, gentle ripples breaking with soft, rhythmic murmurs. Each one rolls in with a whisper, then glides back with an equally soft breath, leaving shimmering patterns on the wet sand. You step closer until you're just above the line where the water reaches. The sand is cool beneath your feet, almost silky in texture, shaped by countless tides that have smoothed every grain into perfect softness. You feel its chill seep into your skin, grounding you, steadying your thoughts. The sea in the moonlight looks like melted silver, scattered with soft glints where the stars reflect on its surface. The horizon blends almost seamlessly into the sky, creating the illusion of a world without a geyser. Continuous, calm expanse of night. A lone fishing boat floats in the distance, its small lantern flickering like a tiny, wandering star. It sways gently with the movement of the waves, guided not by urgency but by the slow, ancient rhythm of the sea itself. You lower yourself onto a smooth rock near the shore. Its surface is cool and polished by years of wind and water. Sitting there, you can feel the faint rumble of the waves traveling through the stone, a subtle vibration that seems to resonate deep in your own chest. You inhale, you exhale, slowly, deeply, calmly. The sea's lullaby continues, patient and unchanging, and in that moment, it feels as though ancient Greece has opened its quietest, gentlest doorway just for you, inviting you to rest, to breathe, to drift into the peace held in the spaces between each wave. The wind dropped so suddenly that it felt unnatural, as if the night itself were holding its breath. For a moment, the only sound was the faint creak of old timber as the abandoned outpost settled under its own weight. Then tap, 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 a pattern, not random, not the wind. They froze, exchanging a look that confirmed the same thought. Someone was out there, and they knew the group had arrived. A soft glow flickered on the far ridge, just long enough to be seen before vanishing behind a curtain of fog. "That's the third time tonight," whispered Mara. "Same spot, same rhythm. Could be a warning," Yolan replied, keeping his voice low. "Or an invitation." Neither option made them feel any better. The outpost's interior was colder than the air outside, its wooden walls marked with symbols that had faded almost to nothing. But now that their eyes had adjusted, they noticed something that hadn't been there when they first entered. A line of fresh dust disturbed on the floor, leading deeper into the building like someone had passed through recently. "Whoever made that signal," Mara murmured. "I think they were inside before we got here." Yolan exhaled slowly. "Then we follow the trail." Quietly, outside, the tapping resumed, a little faster this time, as if urging them not to delay. They stepped deeper into the shadows, following the faint path as the night around them tightened. Listening, watching, knowing they were no longer alone. The corridor narrowed as they moved deeper, walls bowing inward like the ribs of some long-forgotten giant. Dust coated everything, yet the trail they followed remained sharp, fresh lines, where something or someone had disturbed the untouched layer. Mara stopped suddenly. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Yolan listened. At first, nothing. Then faint, soft, almost polite, came the sound of footsteps, but not ahead of them, not behind them, above them. A slow, deliberate pacing across the old loft boards overhead. Yalan motioned for Mara to stay close. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing as he counted each step. Whoever it was moved with intention, never rushing, never hesitating, as if they knew the outpost better than anyone alive should bear. A single step creaked louder, then silence. Mara's voice was barely a breath. "Do you think they're watching us?" Yolan didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to a narrow staircase tucked into the shadows, one that hadn't been visible until they reached this far. Dust covered the first few steps, but higher up the wood looked freshly disturbed. Whoever had been walking above them had come from that staircase and had gone up only minutes before. The tapping outside began again, faster, more urgent now, like two signals calling out at once. Yolan frowned. 2 different warnings, or 2 different traps. Mara tightened her grip on her lantern. "Either way, we're going up, aren't we?" He nodded once, and together they stepped onto the first stair, the old wood groaning beneath their weight as the shadows at the top waited still and silent. The staircase rose gently, each step releasing a soft puff of dust that drifted like pale smoke in the lantern light. Mara climbed first this time, her hand gliding along the wooden railing, its surface worn smooth by years far older than either of them. Yolan followed, placing each foot carefully, listening for anything breathing. Shifting wood, a sigh, but the silence hung round them like a heavy blanket. As they reached the landing, the air changed, cooler still, almost expectant. A long hallway stretched before them, lined with shuttered windows. Most were nailed closed from the inside, their iron latches frozen with age. But one near the far end breathed slightly with the breeze, opening just a sliver and then settling again, as though someone had passed by moments before. Mara lifted her lantern toward the floor. More footprints. Not just a single set this time, 2 sets trailing beside each other, then separating, one moving toward the open window, the other veering into a narrow side room whose door stood half ajar. "What do you think happened here?" Mara whispered. Yalan knelt beside the prints. They were faint, but he could see details in the dust. One person stepped lightly, almost gliding. The other walked with more weight, but not with force, as though burdened by something unseen. He ran a finger gently across the nearest impression. It was still warm. "Whoever they are," he murmured. "They were here just a minute ago." The wind nudged the slightly open window again, the wood tapping softly against the frame, steady, rhythmic, like a beckoning gesture. Mara's lantern flickered. "Do we follow the window trail?" she asked, "or the room?" Yalan looked down both paths. The hallway held its breath, waiting for their choice. "We start with the room," he said softly. "Windows can lie. Rooms keep secrets." And with that, they moved toward the half-open door, its darkness stretching like a mouth, ready to tell a quiet, forgotten truth. The half-open door let out a gentle sigh as Yalan pushed it wider, the hinges releasing a tired whisper, as though grateful to be touched after so many still years. Inside, the room was small and square, but every corner carried a soft weight, like memories pressing against the walls. Mara lifted her lantern, its glow floating across old wooden shelves that bowed slightly under the presence of age. A desk sat near the far side, its surface coated in a velvety blanket of dust except for a single, clean line where a fingertip had recently traced a slow arc. Someone had stood there, not long ago, thinking, remembering, or leaving a message. Yolan approached the desk and cleared a small space with the edge of his hand. Dust drifted upward like faint stardust in the warm lantern light. Beneath the cleared patch, faint etchings marked the wood, tiny, careful symbols carved so lightly they seemed almost shy. Mara leaned closer. "Do you think it's writing?" Maybe Yolon whispered, or maybe just scratches from someone nervous. The lantern glow slid over the rest of the room. A cloak hung from a peg by the wall, thin, dark, and swaying slightly, though no wind touched it. The air here felt denser, hushed, almost respectful, as if this room had been kept alive by someone who visited often. Footprints led toward the cloak and then circled back toward the desk, but then faded near the center of the room, as though the person had simply stood there a long time, unmoving. Mara's gaze softened. "It feels sad in here." Yalan nodded, like someone was trying to leave quietly, or couldn't find the strength to. He opened a small drawer on the desk. Inside lay a folded scrap of parchment. No writing, just a faint thumbprint pressed into the corner, fresh enough to still be visible. The tapping outside steady and rhythmic before ceased entirely. The whole outpost seemed to hold still, as if waiting. Mara stepped back from the desk, her voice barely a breath. "Yolan, I don't think they left this room because they wanted to." He felt it too, a gentle pull, like the room wanting to tell them the end of a story it had held on to for far too long. When he turned toward the door, the hallway beyond looked darker than before, as though something had quietly rearranged itself in the shadows while they weren't looking. Yalan stepped back into the hallway first, pausing as the lantern's glow stretched outward and touched the walls. The shadows looked different now, longer, softer around the edges, as though they had shifted positions while the two of them were inside the room. They felt less like darkness and more like quiet observers who had simply found new places to sit. Mara followed, shutting the room's door gently behind her. The latch clicked with a small, delicate sound, as if sealing the weight of the room's memories back where they belonged. The hallway stretched ahead, the same two sets of footprints still faintly visible, but now something new rested in the air, an almost tangible hush, like the silence that comes after someone finally speaks a difficult truth. "What do you think that place was?" Mara murmured. Yolan walked slowly, letting his fingertips brush the wall as though listening for its pulse. "A room someone returned to," he said softly. "Maybe to remember something, maybe to forget something else." They reached the spot where the footprints split apart, the path leading to the slightly open window, and the path they had just explored. The wind nudged the window again, tapping it lightly against the frame, but this time it didn't feel like a beckoning, more like a reminder, a gentle nudge that something waited beyond. The lantern's flame flickered, illuminating old paintings hung along the corridor, faded landscapes, stormy seas, mountains wrapped in clouds. Most were cracked, their colors muted with time, but one painting, nearest the window, had remained strangely untouched. A single figure stood in a sunlit field, head bowed, cloak rippling in the wind. Their face was turned away, but their posture carried a deep, quiet longing that resonated through the soft golds and greens of the scene. Mara lifted her lantern. "This one looks new." Yolan stepped closer and felt a strange warmth radiating from the canvas, like sunlight trapped inside paint. "It shouldn't," he murmured. "Everything else here is decades old." The figure in the painting seemed almost ready to move, to lift their head, to turn, but they remained suspended in that gentle, still moment. A soft breath of wind sighed through the window crack. Mara's voice trembled just slightly. "Yalan, do you think whoever we're following painted this?" "Maybe," he said, "or maybe it was painted for them." They stood there quietly, letting the hush of the corridor settle over them like a soft blanket. Nothing rushed, nothing pressed them forward. The stillness simply waited, patient and calm, as though giving them time to understand. After a long moment, Yalan exhaled. "We should follow the trail to the window." Mara nodded, and together they moved toward it, guided by the faint footprints and the whisper of air drifting in from outside. The window waited at the end of the hallway like a quiet thought, neither fully open nor fully closed, its wooden frame glowing faintly in the lantern light. The breeze that slipped through it felt cool and gentle, carrying the earthy scent of the night outside. A calm whisper compared to the earlier, urgent tapping. Yolan approached first, placing a hand on the sill. The wood was smoother than he expected, worn not by weather, but by many touches, over many nights. Someone had stood here often, leaning forward, looking out. Mara joined him, her lantern casting warm light that spilled across the floor. The footprints they had followed ended directly beneath the window, toes angled outward, as if the person had paused, gazing into the darkness beyond. Whoever they were, Mara murmured, this window meant something to them. Yolan pushed the shutters a little wider. They moved without resistance, as though the hinges remembered the motion well and welcomed it back. Cool air flowed inside, washing over them in a soft wave, loosening the lingering tension of the hall. Outside, the night stretched endlessly. The outpost courtyard lay bellow still, unmoving, touched only by moonlight. Long shadows from the wall and old machinery lay draped across the ground like folded blankets. But there, in the dust just beneath the window, Yolan saw something new. A fresh trail, soft but clear, footprints leading away from the building, and toward the quiet cluster of trees at the edge of the clearing. Mara leaned forward, her breath catching. They left. Not long ago. The moonlight shimmered faintly on something resting on the ground directly below the window, a small mark in the dust. Not dropped, but placed. Yalan narrowed his eyes. They wanted us to see that. What is it? We'll know when we get down there. For a moment they remained at the window, feeling the night breeze drift around them, cool and calming, as if the world outside were inviting them into its stillness. The outpost behind them felt full of held breath, quiet stories folded in every room. But outside, there was movement, a path, a direction gently marked. Mara exhaled slowly. It feels peaceful out there. Yolan nodded, peaceful and waiting. They stepped away from the window, the lantern's glow trailing after them like a loyal companion, guiding them back through the hallway of shifting shadows and toward the stairs that would lead them outside. The stairs felt different on the way down, quieter, almost reverent, as though the old boards understood that Yolan and Mara were no longer simply exploring, but following a trail intentionally left for them. Each step released a soft sigh of dust, rising in small clouds that glimmered like pale gold in the lantern light. When they reached the lower floor, the air was warmer, carrying the faint scent of old wood and something sweeter, perhaps dried herbs, tucked somewhere long ago. The outpost seemed to settle around them, its silence no longer heavy, but soothing, like a warm blanket wrapped across the shoulders. Mara paused at the doorway leading outside. "It feels calmer now," she whispered. Yolan nodded, almost like "it's letting us go." He pushed open the outer door slowly, the hinges giving a soft hum. The night greeted them gently, the cool breeze brushing against their faces, carrying the clean scent of soil and leaves. Moonlight spilled across the courtyard, draping everything in a silvery glow that softened every corner. The world outside felt wider than it had from the window, quiet, open, waiting with a patient stillness. They stepped out together. The dust at their feet was smooth, except for the trail, though soft. Deliberate footprints leading away from the building and toward the small cluster of trees at the far edge of the clearing. The prints were spaced evenly, neither hurried nor hesitant. Whoever made them had walked with purpose. Mara lifted her lantern, letting its warm light blend gently with the moon's pale silver. "There," she said softly, at the base of the outpost wall, just beneath the window they had looked through, lay the object they had seen earlier, small, neat, intentionally placed. Yolen knelt beside it, brushing dust away with the back of his fingers. It was a tiny wooden charm, carved with simple care. The shape was familiar, a small disc, etched with a swirling line, like a wind current captured in motion. Mara crouched beside him. "It's beautiful," in a quiet sort of way. Yalan held it carefully in his palm. The wood felt warm, as though it had been resting against someone's skin not long before. "This wasn't lost," he whispered. "It was left." A soft breeze drifted through the clearing, ruffling the leaves of the distant trees. The path ahead felt neither threatening nor urgent, just there, waiting gently, as though offering a direction rather than demanding one. Mara stood, breathing in the cool night air. "Do you think they want us to follow?" Yolen looked toward the trees, their shadows long and soft beneath the moonlight. "I think they want us to understand something, and the trail continues out there." The night wrapped around them like a quiet embrace, calm and unhurried, inviting them forward with the soft whisper of rustling leaves and the rhythmic pulse of distant insects. Together, they began walking toward the tree line, lantern light swaying gently beside them like a companion. The trees welcomed them quietly. As Yolen and Mara approached, the lantern light mingled with moonlight, the two glows weaving together in a soft dance across the leaves. The branches overhead swayed gently, not in warning, but in a kind of peaceful rhythm, like the forest was breathing, steady and calm. The moment they stepped beneath the first arching branch, the sounds of the open courtyard softened behind them. The wind settled into a low murmur, brushing through the leaves with a kind of gentle familiarity, as though it had whispered through these woods for centuries and knew every story the roots held. Mara walked slowly, her steps careful but unafraid. "It feels safe here," she murmured. Yolen nodded, scanning the ground. The footprints they'd been following were there, light impressions in the soft soil, spaced with a steady confidence. Whoever had left them had known exactly where they were going. The forest floor was blanketed in fallen leaves, their edges curled with age. They rustled softly underfoot, releasing a faint, warm scent of earthwood, and something faintly sweet, like dried flowers kept in an old drawer. Above them, the branches formed a loose canopy. Through the gaps, the stars shone tenderly, scattered like distant lanterns. Their muted glow gave the forest an almost dreamlike stillness. Mara held the lantern a little higher. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Yolen paused. Not danger, not footsteps, not the tapping from before. It was a soft, harmonic sound, almost like humming, low, rhythmic, drifting through the air as though carried by the trees themselves. A comforting cadence, rising and falling with the wind. "It's coming from deeper in," Yolen said quietly. They followed the footprints further. The trail curved gently, leading them along a narrow path worn smooth by many journeys, though none recent enough to leave marks like these. The humming grew just a bit clearer, still faint and peaceful, like someone humming an old lullaby to themselves while they worked. The sound blended with the natural music of the forest until it felt almost like another layer of the night. The trees opened slightly into a small clearing. Lantern light spilled across the space, revealing a simple wooden bench tucked beneath an ancient tree whose trunk twisted upward like a slow, thoughtful spiral. Moss covered its roots, soft and deep green, like nature's own pillow. And there on the bench lay something folded neat, deliberate, waiting patiently. A piece of cloth. Mara exhaled softly. "Another sign," she whispered. "They're guiding us." Yalan stepped forward, feeling the calm of the clearing settle over his shoulders like warm fabric. Whatever lay ahead didn't rush them. It simply waited, with the same gentle patience that had followed them since they found the first trail. Together, they moved toward the bench, the soft humming drifting faintly in the distance. as though someone just out of sight continued their quiet melody under the watchful moon. The cloth on the bench was small, no larger than a scarf, and folded with such care that Mara hesitated before touching it. The lantern's warm glow brushed its edges, revealing a faint pattern stitched into the fabric. Soft lines curved along the surface, weaving into one another like gentle ripples on still water. Yolen knelt beside the bench and lifted the cloth with both hands. It was lighter than he expected, and warm not from the night air, but from something more intimate, as if it had been held close to someone's chest moments before it was left here. A calming scent drifted from it, herbs, maybe cedar, and something sweet, subtle, like honey warmed by sunlight. Mara lowered herself onto the moss-covered roots of the great tree, listening as the faint humming continued somewhere deeper in the wood, steady, peaceful, unhurried. "It feels like everything they leave behind carries a piece of them," she said softly. Yalan unfolded the cloth with slow, careful fingers. Inside, a small wooden bead rested at the center, smooth from handling, carved with the same swirling pattern as the charm they'd found under the window. When he turned it, the bead caught the lantern's glow in a soft shimmer, like it had been polished by years of gentle touch. "It matches," Mara whispered. "The symbol, the carving." Yalan nodded. "Whoever they are, they've been leaving these marks everywhere, like breadcrumbs, but calm ones." The clearing around them settled into a deeper stillness. The air felt thick with quiet understanding, as though the forest wished to give them a moment's space to breathe, to notice, to feel the presence of someone who lingered just out of sight. Mara traced the embroidery along the cloth's edge. "This wasn't dropped," she murmured. "It was offered." Yolen stood and raised the lantern higher, letting its light glide across the clearing. The soft trail of footprints continued on the other side, leading into a narrow passageway between trees that bent like gentle guardians. Beyond, the humming grew just a little clearer, not loud, but shaped with warmth, like someone humming while they waited for company to arrive. Mara wrapped the cloth carefully and tucked it into her pack. "We should keep this safe." "We will," Yolen said, his voice soft with agreement. The two of them stood for a moment longer, breathing in the quiet, letting the serenity of the clearing wash through them. The great tree towering above seemed to bow its branches in a slow, silent blessing. Then Yolen stepped toward the narrowing path. "Ready?" he asked. Mara nodded, holding the lantern so its glow merged with the moonlight, and together, guided by soft humming and the promise hidden in the footprints, they followed the forest's gentle invitation deeper into the night. The narrow path welcomed them with a soft rustling of leaves, as though the forest shifted slightly to make room for their passing. The air grew cooler beneath the interwoven canopy, carrying the delicate scent of moss and night-blooming flowers. Their lantern glowed warmly between them, its light wobbling gently with each step, while moonbeams filtered through branches like soft threads of silver. The footprints ahead were easy to follow, light, purposeful, never hurried. With each step, the humming grew a little clearer, not loud, but steady, a gentle thread of sound drifting through the trees. It wasn't a song exactly, more like someone humming to keep themselves company. The tune rose and fell softly, weaving through the leaves like a friendly presence. Yolen paused now and then to listen more closely. The forest responded with its own quiet music, the whisper of branches swaying above, the soft sigh of wind curling around trunks, and the occasional distant call of a nightbird settling into its roost. "It feels like the forest knows where we're going," Mara whispered, her voice carried lightly on the breeze. Yolen nodded. "Maybe it does. Maybe it's been guiding them too." The path curved gently, leading them deeper between trees whose bark glowed faintly in the lantern light. Low ferns feathered either side of the trail, brushing softly against their boots with each step. Fireflies appeared here and there, tiny lanterns blinking lazily, drifting through the air like sparks from a slow-burning hearth. At one point, the footprints paused beside a fallen log. Yolon crouched, examining the ground. "They stopped here," he murmured. Mara knelt beside him, to rest. Maybe, or to look around. He touched the moss atop the log. It was slightly flattened, as if someone had sat there for a short time, their weight warming the surface before moving on. A small leaf nearby was folded neatly in half, resting on the moss like a tiny note. Nature's version of a quiet marker. "Whoever we're following," Mara said softly, "they're gentle." "Yes," Yalan agreed. "Everything about their trail feels calm." They rose and continued on. The humming grew clearer, now still soft, still distant, but unmistakably there. It drifted between the trees like a friend calling them through the dark, not urgently, but warmly, patiently. As they walked, the trees began to thin just slightly. The canopy opened enough for moonlight to fall more freely, forming pale ribbons that lay across the forest floor. The footprints shimmered faintly where the moonlight touched them, almost as though the night itself was pointing the way. Mara slowed her steps. "We're getting close," she whispered. Yolun felt it, too, a gentle pull forward, a sense of approach, not to danger, but to understanding, to someone waiting quietly ahead. The path dipped into a small hollow, where the earth felt soft beneath their feet, cushioned with fallen leaves and thick moss. The humming drifted from just beyond the rise on the other side. Calm, steady, familiar now. Yolan lifted the lantern. "Whoever they are, we'll meet them soon." Mara nodded, her expression serene in the warm glow. Together, they climbed the gentle rise, leaving the hollow behind as the night deepened into a peaceful quiet, broken only by the soft, guiding hum ahead. The gentle slope beneath their feet felt almost like a natural staircase, soft earth shaped by time and the steady passage of animals, wind, and perhaps the quiet figure they had been following. Each step up brought a shift in the air, as though the forest exhaled slowly around them, releasing layers of calm and coolness that settled on their shoulders like a comforting shawl. At the top of the rise, the trees parted just slightly, letting a wide beam of moonlight spill across the path. It glowed like a silver ribbon unfurled across the forest floor, illuminating the space ahead with a quiet radiance that felt almost sacred. Mara paused. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Yolon nodded. "It's peaceful." The humming was clearer now, drifting toward them with gentle intention. It rose and fell like a tide calm, rhythmic, never rushed. The melody carried an old familiarity, as if it was something sung not for performance, but for comfort, maybe even for courage. The footprints continued into the light. Yalan stepped forward, letting the lantern's glow mingle with the moonbeam. The air felt warmer here, touched by some gentle presence just beyond their sight. Mara walked beside him, her steps soft as the two lights golden and silver wove together across the leaves. The forest beyond the rise was quieter still. Even the wind seemed to hush, as though it too wished to listen. They moved deeper, and the humming grew closer, not louder, but clearer. Each soft note carrying the impression of breath, of warmth, of someone living, waiting, existing just ahead. A clearing opened before them, wide, gentle, folded into the embrace of the trees. The ground was covered in low, soft grasses that swayed ever so slightly, though the air around them was still. Fireflies drifted lazily across the open space, tiny sparks floating like drifting thoughts. And there near the center of the clearing stood a small wooden structure, not a cabin, not quite a shelter, more like a simple open pavilion, built from smooth branches bound with twine. its roof a weaving of leaves and red mats. Warm light glowed from within, flickering softly like a quiet hearth flame. The humming came from there. Mara inhaled deeply, the sound settling gently into her chest. "They're inside," Yalan nodded. "And they're not hiding." The footprints led straight to the pavilion's entrance, their final impressions pressed neatly into the soft earth, as though made, not with haste, but with steady resolve. A lantern hung there small, crafted from glass and carved wood. Its flame danced in a calm, steady pulse, casting warm shadows that swayed gently across the pavilion's interior. The humming paused for a moment, not abruptly, not an alarm, more like someone turning their head, aware of visitors arriving at the perfect moment. Yolan and Mara stood at the edge of the clearing, letting the serenity of the scene wash over them. The pavilion, the hum, the quiet glow, it all felt like a long-awaited invitation finally reaching its end. Mara whispered, "We're meant to meet them, aren't we?" And in the soft light ahead, the humming began again, gentler now, as though to say, "Yes, come closer." Yolan lifted the lantern, and together they took their first step toward the pavilion. The clearing seemed to hold its breath as Yalan and Mara approached the small pavilion. The lantern in Jalan's hand glowed warmly, and the tiny fireflies drifting through the air shimmered like floating embers, giving the entire space a gentle glow that felt almost dreamlike. With each step, the soft grass bent beneath their feet, releasing a faint, pleasant scent like sun-warmed hay mixed with cool evening dew. The night air wrapped around them lightly, neither cold nor warm, but perfectly balanced, as if the forest wanted nothing more than for them to feel comfortable. The humming from within the pavilion continued steady, peaceful, almost tender. When they reached the entrance, the melody softened, then faded into quiet, allowing the silence to fill the space like a slow, calming tide. Mara hesitated just before stepping inside. "It feels like we're walking into someone's thoughts," she whispered. Yalan nodded. "Someone gentle." He lifted the lantern slightly, letting its golden glow spill across the pavilion's interior. Inside, the space was simple, beautifully simple. Wooden beams formed a graceful frame, each branch chosen for its natural curve. Strips of woven reeds draped the sides, moving slightly in the faint breeze. On the floor lay a soft mat made of braided grasses, and at its center sat a small bowl filled with glowing embers that flickered in a pattern so slow and steady it felt like watching someone breathe. And beside that warm glow sat a figure. They were facing slightly away, wrapped in a light cloak that draped over their shoulders like a waterfall of fabric. The cloak's edges carried the same swirling pattern as the charm and the bead-flowing lines that curled gently, reminiscent of wind tracing a path across calm waters. The figure didn't startle, didn't tense. They simply turned their head a little, acknowledging Yalan and Mara in a serene, quiet way, inviting without speaking. Mara stepped forward, but she moved slowly, almost reverently, as though crossing into a sanctuary. The lantern light brushed the figure's profile, soft, calm features, eyes warm and steady, like someone who had waited a long time yet never once grew impatient. "Hello, Yalan," said gently. The figure gave a small, peaceful nod. Their voice, when it came, was soft enough to blend with the quiet night around them. "You followed the signs," they said. "I hoped you would." Their tone held no urgency, only relief, and a warm kind of welcome. Mara lowered her lantern slightly, letting its glow rest at the edge of the mat. "Were you the one humming?" she asked softly. A faint smile curved the figure's lips. "Yes, it helps me think, and it lets the forest know I am here." The embers in the bowl pulsed gently, glowing brighter for a moment before settling again. Yolan felt the calm of the space seep into him, quieting the last traces of tension from their long journey. "We've been following your trail," he said. "The charm, the cloth, the footprints, they were all yours." "Yes," the figure said. "I left them so you wouldn't feel lost on the way, so the forest could guide you as gently as it guided me." The night deepened outside, but inside the pavilion, the air glowed with soft amber and silver, blending the warmth of the embers with the coolness of the moon. Mara sat slowly on the edge of the mat. "Why lead us here?" she asked. The wind dropped so suddenly it felt unnatural, as if someone had pressed mute on the entire frozen world. The blizzard market, usually alive with whispers and creaking stalls, fell into a silence so sharp it almost rang in the air. A narrow path opened before you, fresh, clean, and unmistakably deliberate. None of the vendors had carved it. None of them would have dared. It led toward the far northern ridge, where the ice was older, thicker, and rumored to hide things people weren't meant to find. You stepped forward. The lantern at your side flickered once, twice, then steadied, as though agreeing to follow. Frost formed delicate patterns on its glass, spiraling inward like a map you couldn't quite read. Beneath your boots, the ice gave a low, distant thrum, not cracking, not shifting, speaking. A pulse of pale blue light flashed under the surface quick, like a heartbeat, then vanished. You crouched, glove brushing the frozen sheet, and the cold stung so sharply it felt alive. Another flash appeared, but this time it wasn't solitary. It pulsed in a sequence. 3 short, 1 long. 3 short, a message. Someone or something was signaling you. Behind you, the old vendor who had been trailing your journey stepped to the edge of the path, his eyes wide but not with fear. "With recognition, that pattern hasn't been seen in decades," he whispered. "If the ice is calling, it means the market's truce is ending." He didn't step closer. Nobody did. This part was yours alone. You placed your palm flat against the ice. The light beneath flared bright enough to paint the world in blue. And then the surface shifted. A door you never knew existed began to open. The ice didn't crack open with noise or violence. It unfolded quiet, smooth, impossible. A thin seam spread beneath your hand like a glowing vein, widening into a perfect oval. Frost curled around its edges in delicate spirals, as if the glacier itself were breathing out. The light pulsed again, slower now, almost expectant. You pulled your hand back. The oval slid downward, revealing a staircase made not of stone or metal, but of translucent ice, so clear it looked like frozen moonlight carved into steps. A cold mist drifted upward. Strangely, it wasn't biting or painful, it felt like air from a different season entirely, tinged with something metallic and faintly sweet. Behind you, the blizzard market remained frozen in its uneasy silence. Only the old vendor dared whisper, "No outsider has ever been called below. If you go down, you don't come back unchanged." He didn't say it as a warning, more like a truth everyone accepted. You tightened your scarf, squared your shoulders, and stepped onto the first stair. It held your weight perfectly. The second stair hummed softly beneath your boot. By the third, symbols began glowing along the walls, thin, slanted runes you'd never seen above. They shimmered in pale silver, rearranging themselves each time you blinked, like they were trying on different meanings until they found the right one. The staircase spiraled, deeper, quieter, colder, but in a way that felt awake, not dead. At the bottom, the passage opened into a chamber as large as a cathedral, its ceiling glittering with frozen stalactites that chimed gently whenever the glowing pulse traveled through the ice. And in the center of the chamber, a pedestal rose from the floor. Hovering above it was an object wrapped in layers of blue-white light, swirling around it like a protective shell. The ice beneath your feet gave a soft, steady heartbeat like rhythm. as if asking, "Do you dare to touch it?" You approached slowly, each step cushioned by the soft frost that blanketed the chamber floor. The light surrounding the floating object rose and fell like the breath of some ancient creature, illuminating the space in waves of pale blue. The closer you moved, the warmer the air became just slightly, like the early edge of spring brushing against your cheeks. It was a sharp contrast to the glacial world above, and for a moment you wondered if this chamber was alive in a way no human language could ever describe. The pedestal itself wasn't made of ice at all. It looked like ancient weathered stone, cracked with age, as though it had been placed here long before the glacier had formed around it.